All right. Welcome to the session, guys. So the topic for this session is IITs are overhyped, agree or disagree. And I do have like a few facts and figures here for just to orient you guys. So there are 23 IITs in the country, and the annual budget for IITs is like 10,000 crores. This is like for all the 23 IITs, by the way. And cost of attendance is 2.5 lakh per annum, and ranges of salaries for professors is like 15 to 26 lakhs. Um, Yeah, there are other facts here. Some of them are not available. I just used Bing to get these facts and figures, and there are some arguments for and against this. I hope you've had the chance to like look at this. I posted yesterday, and yeah. So just to orient you on the topic, there are like multiple dimensions of discussion that are possible on this topic. Okay, so when we talk about IITs, there is a comparison to be made between IITs with other institutions within the country, and then there is a even bigger comparison of like IITs with global institutions, right? So you have to like just to set the context, we are talking about IITs as institutions, not just for comparing within India, but like globally, right? And there has been a lot of debates about like the global ranking of IITs. Why is it so low? Like some of the rankings put them at like 500 or something like that, or 250, something like that. But in India, like there is a huge hype about IITs. Like we think that this is the most amazing institution and it's better than MIT, Harvard. So there are people who believe all these things as well. And there is another dimension to this issue, which is comparing IITians. I've seen a lot of posts on Quora talking about IITians. IITians are overhyped. This debate is not about that. This is not about the graduates of the institution. This is about the institution itself. So so that is the context for this session. And I hope everything is clear. If not, I think you'll get to understand once people start talking. And for those of you who are new to this debate, the way you participate is basically it's a turn-based participation. You have to basically click on the reactions button on the bottom, and then click on raise your hand. So when you raise your hand, you get into a queue, and then you will be able to speak for let's say 2 to 3 minutes when your turn comes. So if you have something to say, please raise your hand using Zoom, the reactions button down below, and you can you can get into the queue. So whenever you guys are ready, you can raise your hand, and then you will have your turn to speak about this. And in the meantime, please respond to the poll so that we can see like what people think. So the link to this in the chat is in the chat. So just click on the link, and then you can place your stance, and you can change this throughout the session. So if throughout the session you hear somebody else say something and you want to change it, you can go ahead and change your vote as well. So you can set it up right now and then change it accordingly as your opinion changes over time. So who wants to go first? Yeah, Harshapriya, go ahead.
Everyone, good morning. So, as a student who has studied at IIT, I can tell one thing that um, they are overhyped in the sense that, um,
Harshapriya,
let's
can you
say,
repeat what you said? We couldn't hear what you said. Can you repeat?
yeah, hello,
Yeah.
is it audible now?
Yes, go ahead.
Yeah, okay, cool. So, as a student who has studied at IIT, I can say one thing that um, there is no correlation between what actually people are let me divide this into categories of students who study at IIT. Let's say there is BTech and there is research purpose MTech or PhD, etc. So I have studied BTech. What I have observed was there is no correlation between what jobs they do post the
Sorry, go ahead.
yeah, so there is no correlation between what happens after they graduate from the college and what they learn in the college. They might have degrees. Like this is happening overall India, I think. This is not specific to IIT. But then the packages they give to IITians, I don't think like all of this, like whatever they study for sitting for the placements is not present explicitly in their curriculum. They'll have to learn it from other courses such as Coursera or YouTube, or the ChatGPT or something like that. So I don't think they are overhyped in the sense that the packages that are delivered to the IIT graduates um, are they come out of the overhype of IITs. So that is one point I can add. Yeah, someone can go ahead.
So Harshapriya, I'm glad that there's somebody here who is graduate of IIT, and yeah, the point you're making is fine, but to the question of like whether it is hype, overhyped, do you believe
Mhm.
yes or no?
Yes, in the sense that this is one point regarding the placements, and also regarding the like it can the positive points or the difference the IITs make is from the other tier 2 or tier 3 colleges is that the community present at the IITs, like the the student organizations that organize whole of the, like we have whole of the the cultural meetings or the fests, cultural fests, or the tech, like the technical fest. There is something called CFA at IIT Madras, where people make innovative projects. It is quite famous for some project related to the trine, the magnetic trine or something. So there are these stuff which people, it's good for people who want to become entrepreneurs. Like it is a good start for them. So in that sense, that provides a good platform for all of these things. But other than that, for placements, it is overhyped.
I see.
Matlab, people do give high packages just because they have IIT tag, but then people outside of IIT also have the similar skills of like if we take the software profile, people outside of IITs also have the same skills regarding the software, like the skills of data
Yeah.
science or something. But then yeah, they give over hype salaries for IIT graduates. So that's
Okay. All right. So, I mean, I don't see anybody else raising their hand. I just want to let people know that, please do share your stance over here. You can click on the thumbs up or thumbs down on the topic. Where the link is in the chat. So do that. But in the meantime, while somebody else is like raising the hand, I want to share my perspective on this. I have a lot of thoughts on this as well. And one of the things is that, like I said initially, I told you there are two dimensions of comparison. One is comparing with like tier two, tier three institutions in India, and then the other is comparing with like top level institutions across the world. Because I think in the psyche of the average Indian, right, they don't know about other countries or other situations. Most of the like majority of like people who are in the middle class or like who've been talking about these things and getting into discussions on these only within their community or with people they know. They don't have exposure to the larger things, and even the Indian media doesn't do a lot of justice in like exposing people to the culture there or something like that. So people, when people have this notion that IITs are so advanced and on all this, they're basically doing the comparison between like how hard is it to get into IITs versus how hard is it to get into some of these other institutions. So the sole comparison is in terms of like how difficult it is to get in, and also how much they earn. Right. So these are the two metrics that people use to evaluate the worth of an institution. And there are so many other dimensions of assessing the quality of an institution that people just completely disregard. And for example, right, like if you look at global rankings, there is always an emphasis on on like how many papers they published, how many patents they filed, how much endowment do they have for research purposes, how many facilities do they have, how much, what population, what percentage of the student population is international students. Diversity is a really important factor in global institutions, because like when you go study in a global institution, the experience is that you get to live in a concentrated like representation of the world. So you have people from across the world enriching your experience of education. So these are all the factors that global rankings take into account when they're assessing the quality of an institution. And I don't know if you guys have heard about US News. So US News is a institution that ranks different institutions across the world. And if you go to their education thing, like they'll have like US News rankings of world institutions. So here you can see the best global institutions, right? They're Harvard, or I think it's Harvard, but that is the one that is like the highest. And if you look at the best Indian college, right, it comes at like some 500 or something. Okay, so here you see this thing and best. I'm sorry. Yeah. So you can look at the rankings on the global scale. You can also select, for example, if you want to select in India, right? You will see that Indian the Tata Institute of Fundamental Research is the highest ranking, and it's the best in India, and its global score is like 53. Okay, and the IITs come at like third or something, and IIT Bombay is the first rank, and its global score is 48.7. But if you look at the list of global institutions, right, the top score is 100. So it is basically like scaled from there, and it appears in 583 in the best global institutions. And these guys have a comprehensive measure of like how to assess the quality of an institution depending on like what kind of facilities they have, what kind of a reach and network they have, what kind of actual frontier level research that happens there. So this is the larger picture of things. And I just want to set that as a context. I see somebody has raised their hand. Please go ahead.
Yeah, thanks, Ranu. So, with regard to this topic, I'll say IITs, though are overhyped, but are nothing extraordinary because uh, we need to see the process through which you get into IIT. You take a screening test, a really hard one, JEE, and then you take out the cream out of the cream from the U. Then it does not matter where we place these students, they are going to excel because these are the students who are like top 1000 or top 10,000 of the nation. Now, uh, the hype part. So, where does the hype come from? Is it because of the curricula? I don't think so because everyone, I guess, agrees that the curricula, even in the IITs, are really ancient and uh, barely updates. If I'm not wrong, then IIT Kharagpur launched its AI program, which was the first of the IITs to do so in 2023 or 2024 cycle. Then, according to the latest data, 36% of IIT, 36% of students of IIT Bombay were not getting placed. Even though IIT Bombay has kind of countered this argument, saying it is somewhere around 3 to 10%, but uh, I guess we should also look at independent sources telling it. And the average package they are getting is also comparatively very less in comparison to prior years. Now, the skills part. Although I was going to talk a lot, but Harsha did so, and she's an IITian, so I guess uh, she knows better that the skill is a bit lacking, although they get good package because the companies are aware that these are the students with excellent IQs, no doubt about it. So they can train them with the standards of the working they do and the company standards in no time. So that is the reason for the great packages. Now, IITs were made as an institution to represent India. For India to get ahead, take a leap forward towards the tertiary sector of the economy. Now, IIT has just become a platform of brain drain. No entrepreneurship or little entrepreneurship is coming out of it. Students of IITs are only talking about uh, what job will I get or what is the average placement and these things. I don't think we expect this from the cream of our country that you guys should be dependent on any other company to give you job and things. I guess they should focus more on creating these jobs rather than depending on other companies. Now, as Raghav rightly pointed out, there is no data about it, but the research is very less if we look at the patents filed through IITs. Uh, if we compare it to the hype it possesses, I don't think it justifies it. And the hype is more through parents because it is hard to get to an IIT. So the IITian tag gets them prestige in the society. So it is more related to the prestige rather than the level of the institution. If we make IITs into rebel, uh, like zero professors, professor of subpar level, but the criteria for applying to these institutions are JEE mains and advanced, still the hype is going to continue because getting into them is so hard that it becomes a tag to be there. And faculty is arguably nowadays better in triple ITs. Yeah, Raghav.
Yeah, thank you so much for that, Prince. I think you touched on a really interesting, like valid points, and I was going to touch on them myself actually. So actually, one of the reasons that I think there is a huge hype about IIT is simply because of the selectivity. These guys like reject 99% of the thing of the people, and you look at the population of India and look at the number of IITs. Obviously, like you've already established a reputation for the tag, like you said, the tag for the institution, and obviously everybody wants to go to the highest, like the best institution out there, and also they've subsidized the whole thing. So now it becomes a matter of like getting everybody is competing to go through that, and then they're going through a funnel, and then the best of the best come out. And the reason why I firmly believe that IITs are overhyped is that the whole everything that the IIT graduates have done. I mean, you put down some of the achievements, but if you see the IIT graduates, they've done a lot of things. Not everybody is just like going after high packages. They're also like building some companies. They're highly competitive people, right? So they do have like a rightly earned reputation, like as being like highly qualified employees. And even that, I believe, is not a merit that goes to IIT as an institution by itself. I mean, think about this. These guys are getting in already at a state of like highly competitive achievement, right? You're competing with like millions of people, and you're coming out of the top. That itself is a huge achievement. You must have a certain level of work ethic, commitment, discipline, basic IQ, ability to follow instructions and get things done easily. These are things that you already have before you go into the institution. And after 4 years, even if you don't learn anything, then you get out, and then you're an able employee. So that is how I think it's going on. I don't think the institution itself is doing a whole lot. I've been to IITs, I've seen their infrastructure. I think it's really nothing that stands out. I think in comparison to anything within India, it may be like a larger institution, maybe more facilities. Obviously, the budget is like maybe like a little bit higher or whatever. But there is no way to compare these to the global institutions that are out there. Because I mean, I went to a college in the US, and over there it's not even like a well-known institution, but even there they had a huge entrepreneurship center, and they give you access to 3D printers, they give you funding, everything. Like you can basically like schedule an appointment to use the 3D printer on your own, and you can do prototypes and things like that. I don't even know if IITs have this kind of infrastructure. I think some of them do, but they're very really late to the party. Like I'm talking about, this was like 10, 12 years ago, and I've seen some of the events conducted by IITs, and I think the caliber is really really low overall. This is my observation, but but in India we don't look at these things. We just look at the packages, like Prince was pointing out. But I think other people have in the queue. So AJ, please go ahead.
Yeah, thanks, Raghav. So I think one of the points that came to my mind was like when we are saying IITs are overhyped, are we comparing them to institutes within, sorry, within India, or are we comparing them to institutes globally? So what it seems like is right now we are comparing it to like everyone across the world. So I was just doing a very quick search. Firstly, I think the ranking for IIT that was there on the screen was as a university. If we look at it as an engineering college, I think it does much better. It's like in the top 200 or so. But even that, I would say, is not like a great ranking to have globally, given the way we perceive IITs as like
Exactly.
these global institutions. But then at the same time, we also need to consider the fact, like, for example, if I look at MIT's fee, it's like $80,000 a year. Whereas if I look at an IIT, I think over a course of 4 years, you only pay like 8 to 10 lakh rupees. So for all of these meritorious students who are from India, I don't think they can all afford like an MIT education or even an education in US. For them, the best bet they have is an institute in India. And for that, I think IITs are the best option that we have. Uh, if we start comparing IITs basis some of the facilities, then obviously they will never be able to compare with MIT. So I'm not entirely sure how that 186 ranking is arrived at. I know there are some other factors involved which make more sense, like research and probably yeah, how many papers you publish, so on and so forth. Probably IITs fare well on those fronts, not so much on the facilities front. But when we say overhyped, I think we should also consider the fact that IITs are based in India and they are charging a very nominal fee. As far as the education quality goes, I remember there were some online courses that IITs had started offering a couple of years ago, and I used to go through those courses, and they were like very, very good, very good. The professors there, I haven't been to an IIT, but by going through those courses, I could see that the professors there are brilliant. So I don't think we can just discount them entirely. I know there are a lot of problems that IITs have. Like you mentioned, there's probably not as many uh, research centers or opportunities for students to do projects, etc., which definitely need to come up. But given it's a government institution and you know how efficient the Indian government is, so that is a challenge. But besides that, in terms of the quality of education, the opportunities that they provide, I think being in India, they're not doing a bad job. As far as placements go, I don't think that's even a factor we should consider because outside India, nobody even gives offers on campus placements. So if 36% of IITians are not getting placed, I don't think we can still compare it to any other institute because any other institute is not even offering placements. So these were a couple of points that I wanted to, yeah, just share.
Yeah, AJ, yeah, thanks for that. Before I let Venkat speak, I just want to make a couple of notes. I do think that there are placements done across, like across institutions. That these things happen. They have like fairs and job fairs and things like that, where they have like industry companies come in and then they offer those things. Now, looking at the, you brought the point of like comparing with India or comparing globally. I think India is at a point where we're all bragging about our huge, youth surplus and our standing as a superpower and things like that. And if you want to go that direction, obviously you have to compare globally. That the time when we were like very insular and looking inside is gone. We have to look globally. We have to pit ourselves against the top dogs so that we can actually have a game to play in a global scale. And definitely we have to compare. And I think that's sort of the thing that's sort of my intention in discussing this topic because like I think most Indians are only aware of the Indian context of anything. So we need to make sure that we're involving the global narrative as well and where we stand in that. So in that it is pertinent to discuss this. With that, Venkat, go ahead, please.
Yeah, so I just wanted to point out that IITs have played an important role in promoting India's image around the world. Anecdotally, I had an American colleague who had seen a TV program uh, in the US, which actually compared the IITs to MIT. I think IIT Bombay specifically, the MIT. And that study and that TV program had concluded that it was statistically more difficult to get into the IITs than into MIT. And that many students, many Indian students have MIT and Harvard and Stanford and some of the top US universities as a backup if they were unable to get into the IITs because they believe they were good enough to get into these top US institutions easily but they were not sure that they were good enough to get into the IIT. And so this American was quite amazed by that program, right? It was a perspective that he hadn't. I mean, like most Americans, he was accustomed to thinking of America as the best, that everything American universities and everything as the best. And it came as a bit of a shock to him that some other country could be doing better on some other dimension. I mean, that's a blind spot that a lot of Americans have that I've noticed. And but he was, open-minded enough to acknowledge that, and he actually talked to me and asked me about the IIT for some context. How did these institutes come about? How old were they? And why is it that getting into them is so difficult? And I explained to him whatever I knew about the JEE, the Joint Entrance Examination, and the sheer numbers that participate in it, and the fact that many millions of people in India have this burning ambition to get into college, to get into IIT, and so on. And so he thanked me for that information, and I've had similar experiences, with speaking to Americans. So I mean, today the engineering progress of Indians is recognized all over the world, especially in the software industry. But I think that the IITs were the tip of the spear that actually gave India global exposure. While IITs may be overhyped in the Indian context, there is no doubt that they've played a role in raising India's profile. Today, we have many vehicles for India to show its progress around the world. But if you go back to the 60s and the 70s and possibly even the 80s, we didn't have that many vehicles. And the IITs were a chief instrument by which India showed its best face to the world. So I think that India as a country owes a debt of gratitude to the IIT and the people who founded it. Thanks.
All right. Thanks a lot, Venkat. Yeah, I would just like to comment on this. Actually, you're right. Obviously, I'm not. Nobody, I think, is saying that IITs have no value or something. Obviously, IITs have value. They have their contributions made and all these things. Regarding your American story, right? I think the perception it's interesting, and also there are reasons why it is the case, right? Like why people put IITs ahead of like joining MIT or Harvard or something. For most people, the cost is hindrance, like you pointed out. Harvard and MITs, it's not easy to get in, and I think there are some maybe like need-based aids and programs, but it's not like clear as to how much that would affect like an international student, especially because like those programs is meant to like assist U.S. citizens because they are the taxpayers who fund those need-based aids. So there is a hindrance to getting like in terms of financing. So that is probably maybe I'm not sure. I'm not somebody who who went on that path, but somebody who's had IITs at the top option and then like Harvard and MIT as a backup. The cost might have been a hindrance in preferring Harvard and MIT over IIT. But I'm not sure if they were doing that purely for the experience that they're getting out of IITs. And the second thing is regarding the selectivity. Obviously, it is tougher to get into IITs over someplace like MIT or something because of the population dynamics, and also because they deliberately kept IITs in a small number of 23 premier institutions for a country this large is too low. And I think the cost of setting up a new IIT that I've looked up is like maybe 2,000 crores max, or like it's usually like 7,750 crores is what I've seen, and 2,000 crores is not a huge amount to set up an institution that is going to have huge dividends in training more people. I mean, think about the annual impact of having a new IIT, which means that if these institutions are really of that high of a caliber, you would be doing like so many more thousands of people a favor of providing them with this education. But I'm not sure why it is kept deliberately so low in number. I think that is the key factor which gives value to IITs, because by keeping it so selective, you are already screening the best of the best and taking them in, and regardless of how well you train them, they are going to add value as an employee because like they are the cream of the top in a country this competitive. And I think India, especially, is a really competitive country. By nature, we are more competitive, right? So I think all these factors add into the perceived value of IITs, regardless of how selective they are or how many people choose it as the top option. These are the things that actually give value to it. I think my argument is that IITians are the ones that are giving value to IIT rather than the other way around. Rahul, go ahead.
Yeah, good morning, everybody. My point is that we are saying IIT is overhyped, but if you see the number of renowned achievers in this country, like in all the sector, politics, economics, and like in technology also, if you see globally, then you will see that most of the achievers are coming from the IIT. So I think IIT is playing its role, and it's the best in India. Another thing I want to say that IIT may not be that nice in terms of infrastructure and all, but it is a place where all the cream mind gather. And then and I have also seen it in the interview of famous IITians who became actor and all. They said that it's not about the education which is provided in IIT, it's about the people who are there. So people gather there, they meet with the intelligent minds, and then after they come with the solutions, and that become a launch pad for very successful people. So IIT is like a launch pad for successful people in this country.
Absolutely. I think that's my point as well, that IITians are the ones who are adding value to the IIT rather than the other way around. But I think the overall argument is that IIT as a space can do a lot more to assist the natural talent that they're pulling in together. So that was my point. Anyway, Prince, go ahead.
Yeah, since the previous speaker pointed out, I would like to reiterate IIT students are tremendous. No one here is talking about IIT, the caliber of IIT students, and I don't think they are at question. They have qualified a really tough examination to get there. Now, the fee part, I truly agree that even though there is scholarship, but the amount is really hefty. But I'm not well versed with English, but is it not called a compromise? And is it right that we are justifying a student studying in the elitist of the college you have to offer because it was a compromise of a sort that people did not have that monetary resource available with them? Because, of course, we are comparing them to MITs and stuff. Now, JEE's top five hardest examination, if not the hardest. And IITs are like have greater rejection rate than leave even MIT, any Ivy League college. So I guess the discussion should be with comparison to the world because I mean, why are we even comparing them to the Indian colleges? They have got the elite minds. So I don't think we should do them that injustice. IITs do also deserve some respect. But I guess the huge part to discuss here is that even after this high rejection rate, when the students are getting into these IITs, then the point to discuss is what is the prize after this, the JEE examinations? Is it IITs? Are we doing justice to these students who are tremendously educated, tremendously talented by giving them an institution that is only well known because of their students, as pointed out by the previous speaker? Because when instances like the JEE Advanced 2020 topper AIR1, Chirag Falor, leaving at any IIT and going to MIT comes up, then we need to talk about this stuff. Now, I do agree with Raghav when he said why there's low number of IITs. Of course, it's a tag. Not everyone can have it, Raghav. Then what is the
Yeah.
point of that elite tag?
No, I think that's exactly my point. The tag is the only thing that IITs are going for it. That's my point of my whole point is that nothing IIT is not doing anything special. They just have this exclusive tag and they're basically branding that and then getting all the best minds together. And obviously, no matter what they do, even if they try to stop an IITian from excelling, they're going to excel in some way because they've done something extraordinary to come in. Okay, like it takes a certain level of dedication, hard work just to prepare for the IIT, and if you've done that you have some natural talent. Okay, you're going to make something out of it. So I'm just saying that IITs are basically riding on the natural talents of these people and not really accentuating it in any way, at least not to the extent that they can if they actually revamp the whole system and provided them with actual infrastructure and things like that. And I also want to bring focus to one point, which is like money is really important in an institution of this scale, this caliber, or with a vision, you need to have endowment. You need to have the resources to put into research. You need to do primary fundamental research. An institution of that scale has to have its own labs doing like frontier level research, right? Those are the things that,
Yeah.
that the best minds of the country deserve, but they're not getting it. They're just going at like maybe 30% of the capacity, because they're just getting the tag and not much more else, right? Compared to the global top institutions. So that was my point. Yeah, Venkat,
But
go ahead.
just
Oh,
to
sorry.
add a point, Raghav,
Yeah,
right?
go ahead. Yeah.
Yeah. So it is right that we are providing these students with a launching platform, but are we able to facilitate them? We need to see that how much we have enriched these students. There is no doubt they are going to go and make a name for themselves in any field or platform available, right? Like rightly pointed out, be it politics, be it the technical field, be it non-technical, they are the best of the best. But we need to see that how much we have enriched them since the day they are joining and the day the convocation will happen. Yeah. So thanks, sir.
Okay. Yeah, Venkat, go ahead.
Yeah, am I audible?
Yes.
So, one of the merits of IIT, not only IIT, but some of the top colleges in India, but especially the IIT, is that there's only one way to get into the IIT. That is the joint entrance examination. And that, distinguishes it from some of the Ivy League colleges in the US. There are other ways to get into the Ivy League colleges in the US, apart from an entrance examination and a clear demonstration of merit. If your parents are a major contributor to those colleges, you could get in. A lot of rich kids actually get into those colleges. For example, George W. Bush was from Yale, I think, which is one of the top colleges in the US. And he was clearly not the brightest bulb in the room. If you just talk to him without knowing which college he was from, you would never guess he was from Yale. And that's the case with a lot of these Ivy League colleges in the US. Clearly, they have a reputation and they're able to attract some of the best talent from around the world. But the fact that they've gone to those colleges in itself is not an indicator of their merit. Whereas an average IIT person, you just talk to a person from the IIT, anywhere in the top 1,000 rank or something, you know for sure that there is solid merit in that person. So selection process ensures that. And to this point, that it is the IITians who add luster to the IITs and not the other way around. I think that's always the case. It's hard to. There are no institutions that automatically confer merit on people. It is the people that confer merit on the institutions, and that's the case for all colleges, including Harvard and MIT and Stanford. If some of the best people that have gone to those colleges did not go there, those institutions would have very little to talk about, right? That is one thing, and I do think the IITs could be doing more to contribute to research in India and to pushing the country forward. But I think we should take a step back and remember the conditions under which the IITs came up. In the 50s, 60s, maybe, I don't know. India was a desperately poor country back then, right? The purpose of creating institutions like the IIT, I believe, was to identify the best talent in the country, have a rigorous, objective process to identify the best talent in the country, give them, a good education, the best education the country could afford at that time, and then leave it to them to contribute to the country and to move the country forward. Whether IITians have done that consistently, I leave it to all of us. We can decide for ourselves whether IITians have indeed been patriotic and try to contribute to the country. Again, my own anecdotal experience, not just from the IIT, but people of high merit who went to government colleges, subsidized colleges in India, and people I met in the US, I did not see them displaying a lot of gratitude uh, to their country and to the fact that they had received a subsidized education. In fact, one person who went to not an IIT but a government college where he received a highly subsidized education, he told me flatly once that he had got nothing from India. And that started me thinking, is that really true? When a poor country gathers up whatever resources it has and educates its best sons and daughters, that's the most the country can do. After that, it is up to these people to give back to their country. And my own belief is that not enough of them have done that. I think that people who receive such education, people of high merit, should really be thinking more about what they can give back to their country. Thanks.
Thanks, Venkat. And I think that's true. Like I think you can look at it two ways. Obviously, they've received subsidized education, better than nothing. Obviously, they've received high quality education at a really affordable price. But I think the sentiment that your friend shared, right, that they have not received anything, is basic. They're talking about it from the perspective of like what they deserve, right? When you compare it as an individual, you're looking at all the talent you have, all the potential you have. Compared to that, I didn't get anything. That is the sentiment that some people feel, right? I think there may be a reflection of that.
Yeah,
And I
and
think that's also in line
yeah,
with the point that I'm making, which is that, I think I just be doing a lot more. I'm not saying that they're not adding value. Obviously, they are. And like you pointed out, it was set for a certain purpose and it's achieved that in again a great way. But in terms of like what is needed, in terms of what the potential of the people of this country demand, I think there is a lot more room for improvement. Venkat, did you have anything more to say?
yeah,
Or
yeah. I did think about this for a long time, and I think that what you deserve is a subjective thing. I think in this case, this guy deserved what his family could afford, and if his family couldn't afford the full market value of tuition in his college, then he didn't really deserve that. What the country did was to identify him as a man of merit and to subsidize his education in the hope that he will give back to his country.
yeah, yeah,
That would have been his duty. Uh, and I don't think he did his duty, and I don't think he was conscious of the fact that he failed in his duty. And that is
okay,
what I would say about people. What you deserve is what your family can afford. Anything
right.
more beyond that, the country is investing in you so that you can give back. And the question is, have you given back?
Yeah, and also one other thing that you mentioned was about I think how Ivy Leagues in the US get their donors can send their kids or something. I think the percentage of that happening is very low. I think even in the US they have these uh, affirmative action, right? They have the affirmative action which prioritizes people, based on it's a racial discrimination policy in effect. Basically, they allow certain like what do you say, certain relaxations for certain people from certain racial backgrounds and make it really uh, competitive for certain other racial backgrounds. For example, they will invite black people more and then like limit the number of people who are coming from the Asian background or something. So if you're getting into Harvard or something, your SAT required for if you're an Asian is like 2,300 or something compared to like let's say 1,800 for a black person or something. So this is like thing that applies there as well. And also in here we have these caste-based reservations. So those things are similar. But the other thing that you mentioned was regarding the best minds coming to the place. That's the same everywhere, and they're the ones who offer the value. I disagree with you on that because in the US, right? If you're working in a university, if you go if you're moving to a certain other university, it's because they are better able to like fund your research, or they're better able to facilitate your work, or they have like uh, like people of higher caliber gathered there. So those are things that a university has to offer to people. It's not just a reputation. It never is just a reputation because all of these are reputed institutions. So if they're having more people coming in, it's because they have certain innate provision that they're giving that nobody else is giving. And in India, I think because there is such a low competition for high-end institutions offering like high world-class education, IITs are having a supreme like reign over the pool of talent pool that we have here. I
Yeah.
think if that changes, right, IITs will clearly be blown out of the water. If we have institutions of the caliber of Ivy Leagues in the US in India and a large number, IITs would not be the top for sure.
Coming up now, there's also another factor. I think that in the US, admissions to these top colleges or colleges in general are not really based on exclusively on test scores. They're based on other things like essay writing
Yeah,
and recommendations from professors, other professors, and things like that. None of those things obtained in India. So that is so. If we had a similar system in India, recommendations from professors and so on, we would call it corruption. Since it's the US, we automatically assume that
no, I
everything
think
is very
I think those things. I want to let AJ and Rahul speak, but I just want to close saying that those things offer a comprehensive view of the person they're looking at, and they have a different culture. So it's a different matter actually. I Yeah, Venkat, can we continue after AJ and Rahul speak?
Yeah.
I want to hear more, but I want to let AJ and Rahul speak. AJ, go ahead.
Yeah, thanks, Raghav. So I think just from the past few points, I wanted to say that I also agree that students definitely play the most important role. Like it's like that same idiom that we say garbage in, garbage out. So like if we are getting the best quality students, and we will most probably get the best quality out. So there's no doubt about that. And IITs do have kind of a monopoly on that in India, but I don't think we can blame the IITs. Like I was just doing a quick research. All of the great institutes that we talked about, MIT, Harvard, Yale, Carnegie Mellon, uh, all of them are private institutes. They are funded by private donors, etc. Whereas IITs are like government institutes, and anything which is government backed is like, very inefficient, not just in India, even outside. So that is one of the reasons why like IITs are like slow to move, slow to change, adapt to the latest trends, etc. We, I think, are falling behind on having good quality private institutes. And I think one of the reasons is that it's only recently that large companies have come up in India, because if private funds have to come and private companies have to sponsor projects, etc., we need some big companies here. In US, you already have like the Silicon Valley and all of the big banks, etc., who will obviously want students to like intern with them to carry on research for them at a cheaper cost than regular employees. And then they also get the best minds through these universities. So all of that extra exposure outside of the classroom, I think, is driven by the fact that they have a lot of companies who are like leading the world in doing cutting edge research. And that's why the experience there for a student is better. The same goes for any other place. Like there are a lot of other rich countries, like Switzerland is there, but we have never really heard of a lot of good institutes from Switzerland, or some other country where you don't have a lot of companies. But Germany, for example, because they have so many great car companies, the mechanical engineering in their institutes is also renowned, because a lot of these companies would sponsor projects in the universities. So in India, I think that is one of the reasons why we don't have great projects in colleges, because there aren't any, there's not any cutting edge research which is happening in India. Although the companies are here in India, their research centers are in the US or some other country largely. So I think the private companies need to step in, like especially those which are like homegrown companies, like maybe something like an Ola. They need to step in, and they need to also do a lot of projects in universities, not just IITs, but other engineering colleges, so that students and the talent pool also grows, whereas the company also benefits at the same time. And so that was the first thing. The second thing was around the subsidized education that we were talking about. I think everyone is driven by their selfish needs, and more so a person who's coming from a poor background. We can't expect him to go back and like do something out of goodwill or nationalism. He's already coming from a poor background. He wants his chance to live a secure life. But what we can do is, when we are subsidizing education for somebody, I think the government can easily put in place some terms where the student has to work for, say, 2 years with ISRO if he's from aeronautical engineering, or 2 years with the government's IT departments or whatever if he's from computer science. I think that is something the government can easily do. And that's one of the ways that you kind of get back what you have invested. And then for the other people who don't agree to these terms, you have like double the fee or triple the fee. So I think it's a matter of regulation. Uh, I just believe that government, because they are not so much invested in improving the talent pool, they're more invested in their own agendas, staying in power, getting funds for their election campaigns, that none of these, all of these important things, they like end up taking a backseat. Like even if I look at my own college, which was also a government college, they have so many funds, but when I go back like after 10 years, 10 years after I've graduated, all I see is that there's new buildings, new hostels, new infrastructure which is coming up, but there's no exposure. There's still not enough projects because the government, because the authorities over there, they know that if they are building new buildings, there's more chance for corruption. There's more tenders that they can take out, and on each of their tender, probably they can earn something under the table. So it's not their agenda to like grow the talent pool of the country. That's something very idealistic that we are talking about in this conference. Everyone is busy filling their own pockets, even though we become very patriotic when Pakistan attacks us. All of the rest of the times in India, generally, like people are very selfish, and that is true for all countries, except for a few like Japan and Singapore, where people are actually very, I would say, very driven by their values. So if we want people to come back and work in India, I think we need to put in some clauses where it's mandatory to work for them for a couple of years here. Otherwise, there's no way that we can just depend on their values as such.
Thanks,
So
Ajay.
yeah,
Rahul, go ahead.
Hello. So my point is we are comparing IITs from Stanford and Harvard in terms of output they are providing in innovation, in new machinery, in new solutions. But I think what we are expecting from IIT, I think government is not expecting that, because if you see there, then the students are very nicely funded. They are very nicely paid for only studying there. Their future is kind of secure. But here, if you see, then in IIT, student have to pay a good education fee. So government is not retaining that talent. They are just taking the education fee for the course, do your course, and get out from here. So and that's why IIT is not like a university, a caliber of Stanford and all for doing great innovation. It's just a machinery which same way we take out the oil from the seed. It just take out the great minds from our country and present it to the companies that take take placement from them, use for you. So it's just a place from it's just a place where capitalist companies can go and hire their best employees. I think that's all the sole motive of IIT right now in our country. If we see how government is treating it, and for that it is serving its purpose, I think.
Yeah. Okay. Thanks, Rahul. Brian?
So yeah, what I can say about IIT being hyped is it's basically IIT is an institution which used to be research oriented in the earlier times. So I guess when they first started, I mean, they churned out a few really good ideas and it built up a lot of steam on that. But then right now the world really doesn't need that many innovations. Like there's too many innovations and too many startups and too many this whatever strategies and to solve the problems of the world. So what IIT is like, it's like evolving into something else. Like my friend, the person who spoke to me earlier, Rahul, is it? He said like they are just churning out. I mean, they're taking the cream of the crop, like Mr. He said, the cream of the crop they take in and then they churn it out into labor. So, but now, if I was studying in a smaller engineering college, let's say, and then I get a job in TCS I did biotechnology for like 4 years, and then I got a job here, then I would have this thing in my mind which says that I spent 4 years in life sciences and I'm doing software work. I got nothing against TCS. I'm not down talking to it, but I'm just saying I spent 4 years with pipettes and whatnot. But then now I'm typing in data into a column. I would have that sort of a remorse. But then if I was to do the same thing through IIT, right? But then I would have that IIT brand, and everybody would look up to you, even if I forsaken my goals in life to do something else. So everybody would look at me just because of that name, and then that kind of mentality it's kind of like acting against your ability to innovate or think of better this thing. It's like it's just channeling your mind into a labor sort of a mentality to offer labor. That's what I'm trying to say. So apart from that, what I would say is like we are comparing IIT institutions with institutions from abroad, right? So like how you said about USA or some other people said some other countries and all. I don't think we can really compare educational institutions to, it's not a standard this thing, because every country has its own problems, house being the population, and population directly affects the competition and the stringency in which the candidates are selected. So all those things are coming to factor, and they are not constant throughout the country. So I don't know how we can compare the, we can just put them on a list and then say this is 200, that is 300 ranking. We would need a better system to do that. And then third, I would say that set forth my point regarding that comparing against countries. Somebody said about Germany and all. The reason Germany is really so at the topmost tier when it comes to technology is because of the Second World War. And Hitler was there, and then he put forth a lot of resources and funding into machinery. And machinery, because he did that because he wanted. It's not innovation he wanted, right? He wanted more cavalry for his armies. So that's how it's at a pinnacle right now. If it was some other country which actually started, which was the perpetrator in the Second World War country, Germany wouldn't be on the list. For example, if India was there in place of Germany, we would be on the top. So that's how they started, and that's how they're also running on a steam which has died maybe 5-6 years ago. Like nowadays, working or studying in Germany it's not really that great actually. So, for example, I could give you Volkswagen for that matter. Volkswagen makes the worst uh, public car, like the consumer cars which you get from Volkswagen. They are the worst you can buy. I mean, they cost a lot of money. They don't have efficiency. I own a Volkswagen, but I can say that they're not good cars. I mean, you have better cars which are made here in India, better at safety, some of them, and better at efficiency. That's what we require as Indian population. But then we still go up for this Volkswagen this thing because it's there in our mentality, like, oh, German technology, like it must be really good. So that's kind of a fallacy that we need to fix ourselves. So coming back to the point of IITs, then I would say that if we stripped IIT of all its glamour and if we pitted it against the institutions which are already running in India right now, I don't think IIT would be even on the list. There are many, many, many institutions which are actually 10 times, maybe 15 times better than IIT. The only way or the only region where IIT shines is because it has these direct MOUs and contracts with organizations like DRDO, what's the other one, DBT, and ISRO. I don't know if they have a direct one, but they might, I'm not sure. Because of these contracts, they are the ones bringing it up. And that's what sets IIT apart. If you're a really great student, if you have really the mind for it, and if you can get past all these under the table business like bribing this thing, and that happens a lot in IIT, by the way. If you have the backing to get past all that, we can really do something that is world changing. But that doesn't happen because people never get to that level. So I would say that IIT right now, it's completely overhyped. And if you can save money and go to a different college which offers you the same this thing, I think people should do that. It's not the research oriented organization it was before. Thank you.
Okay, so just clarify, Brian. Did you start the argument saying that IITs were started with innovation as a mindset, but today we've lost the value of innovation. There is no value for innovation. So what? I'm just trying to make sure I heard it right.
No, what I'm trying to say is like before when IIT when we like let's say I'm not sure the statistics, but what I'm able to understand from it is like IIT used to be a research driven sort of a this thing, right? So most of the graduates which would come out, they would always have some sort of like
I don't think
wouldn't
that
say
is the
most,
case. I think
yeah,
it's
even
more about like bringing a technical workforce. That was the initial initiative for IITs, initial reason for IITs. And
mhm.
I don't see any reason to say something like innovation has lost its value. I think today is the time for innovations to be like properly rewarded. Back in the days, like if you had an innovation, there was no market to like monetize that or make it better or something. Today is the most valuable time to be involved in innovation. And I think that is
So
great.
I mean,
That is the case everywhere. And I think IITs are also gotten better at that. I think the startup ecosystem in IITs are getting better compared to the past. And there are like they are building incubation centers and they're building networking and everything. These are things done by every institution. Okay, but IITs are also getting better at that compared to the past. So just want
yeah.
to clarify.
So what I was trying to say was like IIT is not making its the use of the resources it has access to actually. It has access to these direct channels to all these bigger organizations, which all these other organizations, I mean, other colleges will strive to at least get in touch with them, But IIT have that channel, and then they are not making use of it. So the problem lies here, as in like when you take the cream of the crop, you don't have to put in a lot of effort to bring them up because they're already at the brightest of their career or something. And so what this does, since you already have a very good stock, right? So by stock I mean the
Reputation.
the candidates. Yeah, the candidates who are coming, they are already really good. So what happens is like the organization's motivation to actually teach them something, it goes down, and all these resources which they
I
have
think
at their disposal, they
yeah.
don't make use of it too much. That's what I'm trying to say.
I think this might all be theoretical. I think we might need to hear some the thoughts about the caliber of teaching and the facilities from somebody who's been there. Maybe Harshpriya can answer some of that. But I think Venkat, go ahead. Yeah.
The thing is, a lot of the points that I wanted to cover have already been covered by other people. But I just to add to the points made by others, I do want to say that rather than looking at global rankings, many of these rankings have been devised by the very universities that are at the top. So I think the question we should rather be asking ourselves is the IIT serving the needs of the nation, India, today? I do agree that the need of the hour today is for universities to support entrepreneurship, private entrepreneurship within India. And to answer the question of whether the IITs are overhyped or not, the two answers to that. One is the IITs do a fantastic job of identifying the best talent in India. Then once the talent is identified, how is that talent utilized by the IITs to support domestic entrepreneurship? Is India directly getting the benefits of identifying this top talent? The answer, from everything that we are hearing in this debate, the answer seems to be a mixed picture at best. The IITs could be doing much more to support domestic entrepreneurship, and figuring out ways to make that happen. And the world has already moved on. I mean, India has already moved on. There are many other private institutions which are actually grabbing some of the top JEE rankers as well. But the IITs do need to think about how they can contribute more towards supporting domestic entrepreneurship, supporting a wide range of industries. A country as big as India cannot focus on any one sector, like IT, for example. We need to have a presence in almost all industrial and post-industrial sectors. And the IITs could and should be doing more to support the building up of that kind of ecosystem.
Right. Thank you so much, Venkat. Harshpriya, go ahead.
Yeah, I think regarding the entrepreneurship point, I don't think IITs are supplying that many entrepreneurs as how it should be supplying, because I have seen my alumni, like there are few people, only like handful of people who actually come out of IT and then go like start their entrepreneurial journey. But most of them actually go to Oxford or Stanford or Harvard. They try to get admission in the US or the Ivy League universities, and then maybe uh like follow their path. So IITs alone are not doing the job. Like someone else has also made this point that there are a lot of IT graduates who are topping. For example, we can take the example of Sundar Pichai. He was an IIT graduate, but he did not become Sundar Pichai by just being an IIT graduate. He went to other universities and then gained experience from there. So in that point, I think IITs are overhyped. And there was something else about the professors. I think that point. I lost that point. Can you just?
I wanted to ask, what is the quality of teaching and also the facilities from your perspective? Which IIT did you go to, and what was your experience? Talk about that.
Yeah, I studied at IIT Madras. I totally agree with the fact that the professors there are exceptional, but then I don't think that in this online world or just we have access to many other resources than just IIT professors, I would say. Like regarding that, IITs are overhyped in the sense if you are going to do a PhD or want to do a project under the professor, then it might be a help to you because he is exceptionally did a research in that field. So in that point it might help, but then for the engineering students, I don't think I'm not saying the professors are not exceptional. They are exceptional, but how much value they are providing to the student, the engineering student. So that could be questioned.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, I think you're right, and also I want to point out the salaries that professors at IITs make in comparison to somewhere in the Ivy League or something. Because these whoever these professors are, right, they basically have to have like a sacrificial mindset to come back to India and get these salaries. Because if you look at the salaries, they're like 25 lakhs, 30 lakhs, something like that, which is what like any Tom, Dick, and Harry would be making in the IT industry at that level of experience. And obviously being a professor is like a much higher prestigious role than being like a common IT employee or something like that. Now, I think with that level of incentive, right? It's not going to attract the best of the minds. If you're talking about the best institution in the country, it could be attracting a lot bigger pool of competition for those roles if they offered more higher paying packages for the professors. And I think if IITs did that, right, it would also like tip the balance of the other institutions that are hiring, because like then they would also be forced to compete and offer higher paying packages to the higher paying salaries to the professors, and that would attract more and more qualified people to apply to be a professor. Because right now the only time you want to be a professor in anywhere in India is because you want to teach, not because like it is like it's bringing you into research, or like you're really forced to consider teaching in order to um, like truly make the best out of your profile. So those things have to be considered as well, because like the amount of money that professors abroad are making, that is definitely like much higher, even in like in mediocre institutions, not just in the best ones. So I do want to, yeah, AJ, go ahead.
Yeah, just a very quick point. Since we were talking about professors, I think I disagree with the fact that the professors are great, but they aren't adding value. I feel professors are like one of the most important like experiences that you will get when you're going to a college. Obviously, like you're attending half your day with professors. So like the daytime is spent with the professors and the evening time is spent with your peers. So the peers question is already sorted. We are getting the cream of the crop. So you have great peers to interact with and you have great learning after class. But in class, if the professors are great, I think that's adding a lot of value. And I've seen that personally. Like I went to one of the reputed colleges in India for my master's, and the professors there were like really amazing. And I learned so much from them. Like it helped me open up my mind. Like sometimes I would feel so lucky to be sitting in that class. But then at the same time, there were still students, I know, like maybe 20% students who would still not care. Even in that environment where the professor is so amazing, they would still be busy with their own stuff and not really care about the professor. And that was a complete waste, in my opinion. So I personally feel professors, and like you said, they are sacrificing something coming for such a low package given their qualifications and teaching the students. I think they are the ones who are actually contributing to generating a better future for the country. Uh, Plus, it might also be their passion, so it's not just
Yeah.
about sacrifice. But I think professors add a whole lot of value, and the only reason some of these IITians go out and then they study from Harvard, etc., is to get into those countries, get a visa, and get a job there. I don't know how much they care about the education itself. I think a lot of the learning, anyways, happens on the job. No amount of education really prepares you for the skills that you need on the job. But what it does prepare you, what a good professor does prepare you for is they open up your mind, they build your fundamentals. And when you're spending half of your time in the class for 4 years, I'm pretty sure the quality of the professor matters like a lot because I've seen it mattered a lot for me. So yeah, just those 2 points.
Okay. Yeah, I don't think anybody said that professors don't add value. I think we're all grateful for anybody who's teaching, especially for not for a compromised package or something. But yeah, um, Prince, go ahead.
Yeah, I just had two, three quick points. I guess Harsha rightly pointed out that why Sundar Pichai has to study in Stanford and what time to become Sundar Pichai, or Satya Nadella has to study in University of Wisconsin and University of Chicago. to become Satyanadal. I guess that is the point where we need to look at that. Though they are IIT students, why do they need to go to these institutions to enrich themselves to get to the place where they are? Secondly, I do agree that the professors in the IITs are really underpaid, but additionally, I'll also look at a point that what is the criteria for the professors to get in. I'm not saying the professors already in are less qualified or so, but sometimes qualification does not matter. Teaching is really different from the amount of knowledge you possess. And I guess we all have seen in our personal lives that a person who's really into teaching and has those skills, even with comparatively less knowledge, can really, ignite that fire within the students to kind of go in and do their own research, study, whatever, as pointed out previous speaker. But if the professors are not providing you a skill and you are of a pre-notion that skill is anyway going to be acquired in a job, then if the colleges are not making you industry ready, then what are the colleges for? I think even though there are many works to be done by the institutions, but making you industry ready should be the pinnacle of the targets for them. Additionally, to conclude, I'll just say that it really makes me upset that we are not really able to give to these students what they deserve. I really think that these students are really qualified and highly talented, and we need to develop a system in which we are able to enrich them to a point where study should just be an option, and it should not be a necessity that I need to go to Stanford or Wisconsin to develop those kind of skills that might help me get forward in my career. Yeah, Raghav.
All right. Thanks a lot, Prince. Venkat?
I just wanted to answer this point about why people like Sundar Pichai or Satya Nadella, got an education in the US in order to uh, get to their current position. I'm not sure that those two are linked. If you're an Indian student on an Indian passport with an Indian degree, it's not very easy to get to the US and to start working there. Uh, One of the most common routes used by Indians to get to the US is to do a master's, or a PhD or something, and then start working in the US. So, a substantial proportion of those who have uh, some degree from a U.S. university and went on to work in the U.S. and become successful there. For them, the reason for that would have been that was the only way for them to get to the U.S. And again, many of them want to get degrees in American universities, not necessarily because of the quality of education there, but because they want to work and settle down in the US and enjoy the benefits of the standard of living that's available in the US. And again, anecdotally, I have had a huge number of American colleagues over the years. When speaking to Americans, I never got the impression that they're the product of a superior education system. I did get the impression that they're the product of a superior culture, but that's a different matter altogether. So I don't think we should downplay the effectiveness of our education system. Uh, I think for the most part it does its job. It's very difficult to fit people for the roles needed in industry because they may end up in a different place from where they started. But I have the highest opinion of the Indian education system, and especially the IITs, because of its severe objective nature. There are no shortcuts. There is no easy way to get into these colleges. You have to be really good at physics, maths, and chemistry, and you have to, score at a certain level in order to get in. Whereas with American colleges, there are other ways of getting in which are not related to merit. At least that's my opinion. Thanks.
And Venkat, I think I'm glad you brought it back again, because like this is something that I wanted to talk more about. Is that in America, when I was applying to the American universities, I noticed that there was a comprehensive overview. I even applied to like Canada and Germany and things like that. But the American application process is very unique in that they have like a huge admissions department, which is composed of people. They're looking at various metrics to evaluate the student. It's not just about the SAT. They also have an entrance exam called the SAT, where they don't just like talk about like math or science and things like that, but also English comprehension and things like that. And I think that is a huge component. I don't think IITs focus enough on the overall individual and the personality of the person and their soft skills and things like that, because these things have a huge impact. I've seen IIT graduates actually. When I was in the US, I had a roommate who was a PhD student in who went to the US to do a PhD program, and this guy couldn't even talk properly. Like he was his communication skills were so poor. I don't know how he started doing the PhD program, but these are things that they evaluate in the American education system. And I think it does add a lot of value. They evaluate the writing skills so much. I think IITs need to do more of that. So this is a shortcoming, in my opinion. I think the way you put it is like you're calling it objective, and that's a good thing. But I think objective and subjective aspects are both important. And I think the the exclusive focus on objectivity is almost like a shortcoming rather than a merit, in my opinion. I think there's a new person called Vani. Vani, do you want to say something?
Hello everyone. Like I joined for first time. There's a one point like in job when the company got placed and go in companies. We see that there are companies who take people from IITs and pay them higher salaries and take from other three tier colleges for the same role and pay very less salaries compared to the IITs. But the role is same, job is same. So I think this actually impact on the people who are not from IITs in a not good way. So I think in that sense the IITs are very overhyped.
Yeah,
Yes.
and also regarding the admissions, right? Like they actually look at things that they've done outside the classroom. Meaning, for example, if you did some kind of a project or something to help the community, or you did some innovation that is like really showcasing your true talents, the American institutions are really interested in that. They're very interested in the overall profile of who you are, what you do, what are your motivations, what is your situation, and what is your demand for coming into our college. What do you want out of this? So they look at all of these, and then like they will make a decision. And like here, right? Like if you score really poorly on chemistry, but you're really good at physics and math, but you also built a really like a smart like a vehicle or something like that. Maybe you built a EV in your 12th standard something. Now that would amount for a huge merit for that student, but that person would not get in because like his chemistry scores are really low, right? So that is the kind of like holistic nature to the evaluation that bringing in the subjective dimension also brings in, which I think we don't really do. We don't really do anything that cannot be automated. If you look at the JE like score sheet, it's basically it's evaluated by machine, right? It's a completely objective, completely evaluated by machine. There is no like human involvement in the selection process. So that is a detriment in my opinion. Yeah, Venkat, go ahead.
Again, I think we need to look at the downsides of non-objective methods of evaluation. If we did that, India being what it is today, if we added subjective criteria like communication skills and community service and bringing innovation to bear before a person has even had the chance to acquire a degree, I think we will end up excluding some of the very people in India, who have merit, objective merit, but who lack subjective skills because they're from a rural background or they're from a poor background, and who have not had the opportunity to do those things yet. Uh, so the IITs are a vehicle for social mobility and social uplift. And what we don't want to do is to exclude upfront people who have not had the opportunity for uplift, but who can uplift themselves if given the chance. And I believe a lot of that is happening in the US also. Studies have shown that the socioeconomic parents of socioeconomic status of the parents is the most reliable predictor of their children's future advancement. So I think that American colleges do a very effective job of excluding precisely those Americans who can contribute in the future to their country, but who have not had those opportunities yet. So while we see success stories, what we do not see, what we tend to lose sight of is the objective of an education system, and an education system that gives priority to existing privileges and advantages is not the best, in my opinion. And again, I think that the Indian education system does a better job of social uplift. than the American system. Again, it's my opinion based on what I've seen. Certainly open to contradiction, open to debate.
Yeah, I definitely disagree with that. I think the effect of Indian admissions process being more inclusive, more like comprehensive to an individual, what it would do is basically make all of those people who are aspiring to be in these institutions also focus on those elements because those are important for success. You cannot have like a purely nerdy, like mathematical guy who doesn't even know how to speak succeed in life. Like he's probably going to be like working for somebody else doing all the innovation and not getting any credit. That's what he's basically preparing for. And the emphasis on the other dimensions, other subjective communication, all of these things will make that person a more well-rounded person who's more capable of independent success, right? And what it's going to force people to do is that when people see that IITs are requiring these kinds of things as well on top of the objective things, so now I must prepare for that. So I mean, you've seen these memes about like how IIT JEE preparation starts from when you're an embryo, right? I've seen some memes about like how is it too late for me to start preparing for IIT because I'm still in my mother's womb? I mean, that's a level of preparation that goes into getting into IITs. And if these people know that IITs are looking for more than just the scores and the math, physics, and chemistry, they will start focusing on developing themselves in those dimensions as well. And then they will get the adequate training to be more well-rounded individuals. And I think that is the merit of having a holistic admissions process. But yeah, Venkat, go ahead.
There are many people who don't have the opportunity to develop these things. If you wanted communication skills and fluency in English as an entry criterion for IIT, for example, that will simply exclude many of the people who get into the IIT today, right? That's one thing, and we do want the IITs to be a vehicle for social mobility. And when I say that I found the Indian education system to be superior to the American one in many respects, it's based on an experience of working with American companies over 30 years. I remember when I started out in this industry and when I went to the US for the first time, this industry was populated by large numbers of Americans and by very small numbers of Indians. That proportion has almost inverted today. What's happened today is, these days it's not uncommon to be on a call where there are people from India and the US, and where the majority of the people are from the US, but the majority of them are Indians, who got an Indian education degree. So it's almost
no, again,
it's almost let me finish. It's almost as though the Americans have been elbowed out of the system that they created. So I want anyone who touts the greatness of the American education system, the results are not there to show for it. I mean, if it was really that good, they wouldn't have been shouldered aside by Indians that easily. So either we have a natively better population, or the education system in India does something better than the American system. I mean, the data has to be explained.
I'll tell you what exactly is the reason for that. It's basically the competitive nature of things. Okay, you in America everything is relaxed. Like you're not in a rush to anything. Okay, and in India, like if you don't rush, you're not going to get even the things that you are rightfully deserved. Okay, so that is the distinguishing factor. I don't think education is the sole factor in determining the success of Indians. You are going through an education system that is like repeatedly like resisting any kind of like freedom or innovation and something like that. Suddenly, when you find the space, you burst with like enthusiasm and you go and take use of all the opportunities. That is the reason why Indians succeed abroad. It's not because it's so good. It's because it's terrible that people are actually making use of the opportunities abroad. And I can say this from my personal experience as well. Like that the whole time I was in India studying here, I felt so constricted. I felt like I was being raised in a straitjacket. There is no agency involved. You're not allowed to make decisions. You're not allowed to choose what you want to study or what you want to do. Everything that everybody understands is just the score in your exam paper, which is done with like actually ritualistic effort. Like you don't have to do any innovation. In fact, you have to stop thinking and stop being creative to excel in here. Right? When you put in a situation like this, and then suddenly you're given the liberty and opportunity, you are going to excel. Okay, so I would say that Indian education system does have a role to play in Indian success, but it's not in the way that you imagine. It's not because of the quality offering. It's more like it's because like people.
To the extent that the Indian education system makes people more competitive, even that's a strength of the Indian education system as well. Obviously,
I think that has more to do with population dynamics as well. Because like we are inherently like competitive because of the limited resources and the high demand and talent we have, right? I would say that those things play a much bigger role?
That's fine, but once again, they may play a bigger role. They may in fact be the primary factors. But that again goes to show, ultimately the success, the data and the facts speak for themselves, right? Um, for the life of me, I cannot explain why the American system was truly that much superior to the Indian system.
No, there are two things. Okay, the American system, right? The primary education system, secondary education system is a different ball game compared to the higher education system. The primary and secondary, I think they are a failure. In fact, they don't prepare them adequately enough. And in Indian system, we do like focus more on the STEM and everything. But the higher education, when you compare it, it's completely the opposite. You cannot compare higher education in India with theirs, because like those two factors you have to keep in mind. It's not the education as a whole thing. These are three divisions. They perform differently depending on where you look at.
Sure, but the entry into IT, most IT companies require an engineering degree to get in, right? And that is where Indians have come in with degrees from India, and Americans came in with degrees from the US. And today there are far more Indians than Americans. At least the proportions are, have shifted significantly.
Again, that is the
That,
population reason, right?
that's a very significant fact. Indians in general are constitutionally, they want to dismiss the strengths of India. I'm less inclined to do that. I think that India does do certain things very well, and especially when the data is obvious, I think that we should take a step back and admit it,
No,
rather than blindly insisting that there is still something superior about the American system.
No. I think the data that you're talking about, the success of Indians is completely unrelated to education. Is what my point is. I'm not denying the success of Indians or something like that. I think there are different metrics to success as well. I would not say that we've succeeded in all the dimensions. In the dimension that you are comparing, where the employment of things and Indians getting better employment rates, that is one measure of success. I would also talk about the success of like entrepreneurs. If you look at the American entrepreneur ecosystem, most of the companies are doing brilliant work. The scale and ambition of these companies are not, still Indian companies they have to like go steps ahead to match those ambition and the scale and things like that.
30% of entrepreneurs in Silicon Valley are Asian, are of Asian background. Those who come into the US, they're basically immigrants. They've come into the US with degrees from their home countries.
No, that is true. I do want to like let Prince and I think AJ also had their hand up. But by the way, guys, like just to inform you, 12:30 is when we kind of like we start having more open discussion format. So you don't have to raise your hand. Just start speaking. I think Prince, you've been waiting for something. Go ahead, Prince.
Yeah. I beg your pardon for any harsh languages or harsh words which might be considered by someone harsh, even though it's not, believe me. Regarding competitiveness being considered as some sort of a medal on the chest of the Indian education system. Now, rightly pointed out, data speaks for itself. 2019 to 2021, over 35,000 students committed suicide, with a rise from 10,000 to 13,000 in the year 19 to 21. Now, this is what a pressure does. And I'm very happy that this point came up because I personally was preparing for JE, and the mere toxicity and the objectivity of the examination forced some people out of it, even though I was like in the top batches where people aspire to be. The thing that comes here is due to Raghav was right about that, due to the objectivity of the examination being JE, it is solely based on some formulas, some subjects, and some examination. It literally pays zero attention to the personality of the person or how a guy is, what are his hobbies, and things like that. What that leads to is a lot of students aspiring to be that objectively perfect guy. They leave everything, they leave their life aside for like 2 years and they prepare for a certain examination. Now, if I may take a dialogue straightly from Quota Factory, I'm sure you might have seen that 2 साल बच्चा कोटा में रहता है, but a quota is not able to come out of a student because it is such a culture which really kind of it really forces you out of your life. Now, it's a 17, 18-year-old student. If his whole life revolved around a certain examination and data speaks for itself, 99.9% of the students are not going to get success. That's the harsh reality of the examination. If you are even throwing them out of their life, just making them focus on mere formulas, then what life do they have? The whole purpose of their life has been shattered, and we are not talking 5 to 10%. We are not talking about 5 to 10% of the people. We are talking about 99.9%. So this is really something that we need to look into. The competitiveness is not something that we should take it as a medal. And rightly pointed out by previous speakers that in India there is some sort of rush, because even if we look at the Israeli culture, students usually take a year or two off from their education after their 12th or graduation, depending upon their mood or financial status, just to travel. This shows that this kind of a positive environment should be there in India as well, so that we can reduce this 35,000 number in mere 3 years.
Yeah,
Yes,
exactly,
sorry.
man. Completely agree with that.
Yeah, but competitiveness is the one which breeds effectiveness, right? So we can't say that competitiveness is a bad thing. Without competition, you're not going to go anywhere really. If I didn't
No,
have a
but
competition, if I don't have somebody to compete with, I mean, I'm going to take my sweet time to reach my goals, right? So that's really deterrent. It's
no, but
deteriorate.
Brian, like think about this. Like there are levels to competition as well. Like think about this situation. For example, Prince brought this situation where like somebody in abroad is like taking a gap year, they're traveling and all these things. In this 1 year, right, they will probably get like different multicultural experiences. They will maybe travel to a different country and then explore their cuisine, their culture, the things they talk about, all these things. Now, this
True,
person has like a much broader exposure to reality, and
True,
they're
I
not in a
understand
tunnel
what you're
vision.
saying. Yeah, then they're definitely not in tunnel vision. That's true. So, like when I last spoke earlier, you rightly pointed out that the IITs were actually trained to generate a workforce. So when you talk about a workforce, you don't really need a broad mindset or something. You just need
Oh
the
no,
person to
no,
do
no,
what
man.
is told. Like
No, 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 no.
that's the
You're absolutely
general.
wrong. I'll tell you. See, because creativity is required for any role. Like you do not want to have the liability of managing a person with no creativity. Trust me. Like that's like a
True.
that's
I
like a
mean, I
burden.
understand what you're trying to say. I mean, but then the selection procedures, all the algorithms, everything have been set with that mentality. That's how IIT was built. That's why your examinations and all of this, that they're very, very objective. They exactly want what they need. So they don't want to, like you went to Australia and you saw this island or that island. You have so many languages. They don't
No,
need
no,
that.
no.
I mean,
See,
a skill which
those
you have, like if you know how to speak Spanish in Rome, that's not going to help you unless you encounter another Spanish person, right? So that is
no,
not
those
what
are
IIT is looking for.
no, those experiences are not the achievements. They are seeds for this person to develop a broader way of thinking, which is required in any problem solving environment. Don't think about the job or what is required in the market. If the whole point of education is to prepare an individual to be better at like managing reality and like, excelling in succeeding in the world. So for that, you do need broad exposure and also the ability to assimilate various experiences and come to a solution to any problem that you're facing right now. So if you're sitting, the whole of your educational experience is sitting in front of like a screen and then like memorizing algorithms and like being good at technical things, you do not have any life experience to go off of and do
So,
things,
okay,
right?
if I was to like be so, I mean, naive enough to actually Google the definition of IIT in Google, like if I did that, it would say Jawaharlal Nehru, who pioneered establishing of IIT, blah blah blah, to provide trained technical personnel or international class to the nation who would act as leaders in technology for the newly world independent India.
Okay.
So it focuses a lot on the word technology. So I understand what you're saying. I mean, we are looking for a well-rounded individual who is not just into like cause this, sign that. So he needs to be able to apply those the things which he has learned into the real world. This thing. So that's the gist of your point. He can't be the at the pinnacle of mathematics and at the worst of social skills. So that's exactly what you're trying to convey. So I completely agree with that. But saying that competitiveness is a bad thing, that's what I have a problem with,
No,
because competitiveness
like
is
I
the
said,
one which
No, no, no.
there are scales to it. Competition is healthy. Like just like if you take a medicine in large quantities, right, you're gonna die. If there's toxic, anything in huge quantities is toxic. Even water, if you keep drinking water, right, your body will burst. That's the nature of like dosage. We're talking about the dosage of competition, not the merit of competition itself, but the toxic amounts of it. That's what Prince was talking about. You go to Kota, like they're basically, it's like a suicide mill. You send kids to want to kill themselves. That's where you send Kota. That's why you would send anybody to Kota. And that is what he's talking about. That level of competition is what Indian education system breeds, and that is toxic. That is what we were talking about.
So one of the consequences of the level of competitiveness we were talking about is he pointed out the suicides and everything. So that would be one of the consequences, right?
Yeah, I mean, if you have like unhealthy amounts of competition, you're going to have situations like Kota, which is not a healthy environment for any child to grow up in. And like you said, the one person that gets into IITs, let's say that they're all benefiting from being at Kota, but the remaining 99%, they have spent 2 years in this toxic environment and they have not gotten what they want. Right? This is not a healthy environment for anybody.
Yeah, I understand what you're trying to say. I mean, but I still stick to the point saying that one of the defining qualities of an IITian, or let's say that somebody of that nature, I would call it caliber. Really, it's not caliber; it's nature. I mean, they inculcate this certain nature of in yourself. Like you are so much into, like if you ever talk to a person from, let's say, IIT for that matter, since we are talking about that, they always look at things in a technological sort of a perspective, you know. And when you read a line in a book, you interpret in a way, you would interpret it in a way different than a person who has spent 4 years, 5 years going through all these, the high level of competition or this or that. So that mentality you cannot forge it by easy living. That
No,
is
man.
the that is the
I think it's
hallmark.
still
That is
possible
the
to like
hallmark of IIT.
balance.
So
No,
we
it's still possible to combine competitiveness with a certain level of open level exposure and things like that.
so
I
I mean
think I
that's
just wanna.
okay. If I can complete, I'll just tell you one thing. So what I can say is like what we are thinking is like we are thinking, right? But then that's not what is operating right now. Right now, the hurdles, you could call these examinations and these interviews as hurdles, which have been set forth by these institutions, have been designed in such a way that it will only allow what they require, and what they require is dedication. Like what they don't. So
But even
since
there,
it is
right?
there,
Yeah.
since it is there, I mean, we are talking about the realities that I'm saying. So
No,
I
even
wish I
even there,
would.
like we're talking about the purpose of the institutions, right? That is like outdated. We don't no longer just need like a basic skill force, technical skill force. We need entrepreneurs, we need leaders, we need like like solution makers on a large scale. Look at what Elon Musk has done in America. We need somebody like that, and that requires
But
innovation and like working in the frontiers and doing things on a scale. That is what Indian economy also needs. That is what we need also as a people as well. That is what we need to project the superpower image that we are aspiring for, right?
but then the problem with
I
the
just had to.
Hi
if I,
everybody, I
if I
would
may say,
also like to.
this is the last sentence, you guys, please.
Yeah,
So
go
Yes.
ahead.
yeah, if you can, like when we talk about superpowers, superpowers is not made by entrepreneurs. Okay, I mean, Elon Musk is there. I mean, it's an exceptional case, but we cannot base and design facts on something that is exceptional. Everything is works
No,
on data, right?
yeah.
So most of the 90% of the superpower which makes is the workforce, and it's not somebody. If everybody is an entrepreneur, who's going to work for the company, right?
Not everybody, man, but a large enough number of people. But Rahul, go ahead. I think you were.
Yeah,
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 yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, I
I'll
wanted
go ahead.
to say the topic of discussion was IIT is overhyped, and
Yeah.
in the whole discussion,
Yeah, yeah.
we kept
Tangent.
comparing IIT with the Harvard and the American universities. So I think if we see IIT in comparison to that, it is not that overhyped. But if we see in the term of how our society perceive it, like in our society, now the terms has been raised about how many person are committing suicide. So I would say people are committing suicide, and there is huge competition like quota and all, because our society likes the tag of IIT. It's not that everybody want to become an engineer, try to innovate something. They are just going there for tag. So in our society, IITs are wrongly hyped. So I would say
Yeah.
the whole point was, we should try to prove that no, IIT is not the only way where you can get succeed, and if like it is not the only way to become successful in life. So
Rightly said.
yeah, yeah. So I think our whole debate should have gone in the way to prove that to bring that education in our society. So we should not create a wrong rush about going into IIT.
Yeah, the motivation is important. Yeah,
Yeah.
actually, Harshapriya, you had your hand up a while ago. I just want to make sure that you had your chance to speak. Like, did you have something to say?
Yeah, I had a point about the admissions into IITs, about the like I think Prince covered my points earlier. It was about like I think Venkat was talking about earlier, right? He was talking about the IITians wanting to give back to the society. But the point is, whenever you're like you're admitting a student into an IIT, you're not even checking what he wants to achieve or what he wants to do in the IIT. Like
Yeah,
you were also talking about the essay thing, right? At least they
yeah,
could have asked, what is their motive to enter into IIT?
yeah,
Do they want to do a research, or do they want to get into a job, or do they don't even ask this simple question. If let's say like that, let's say they do not have any communication skills like English or something, but then they could have at least put a put up it in regional languages, a simple
yeah.
test
Absolutely,
to test the
exactly.
personality.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that was one point I wanted to add. Yeah.
Yeah, and I think I didn't have the chance to mention this, but when I was talking about communication skills, I'm not talking about their articulation in English. That is a very different metric. When I say
Hmm.
communication skills, like let's say that you built like a really innovative engine, okay, like that requires like your engineering skills and all this stuff.
Hmm.
Now, if you're asked to present it on a stage, you're stumbling for words, like you don't even know what to say, like you don't like regardless of what language you're asked to speak in. Let's say that person is like not well versed in English, they should obviously be able to speak about it in whatever native language they're comfortable in. And I see that is even that is a issue for a lot of people, because like they don't understand the context of where they are, what they are doing. They can be really good at math, physics, and science, but to understand the context of where they are, what they're supposed to do, what to do, what is the most smartest thing to do in the situation. I think with that, like they don't have the wherewithal, like the training to be in those situations. In all of their educational training, they don't have to be in those situations. They just have to sit in front of a paper and then solve questions and answers. And if that's all you do, that's all you're going to get good at. And
Yeah, with my experience as well, I've seen students around me who has gone into IITs. There are a lot of people who do not know why even they are going into IITs. They don't know what they
exactly,
have to do. So it's like they don't know what to do. So that's why they sit for placements, because they offer high packages. At least you should like in the society, it should feel that you're doing something out of IIT, right? So that's why they sit
yeah,
for placements, and then yeah, that's how it's getting
yeah,
done
like.
for majority of the cases.
And to be honest, like if they started asking for like a SOP or something like that for IITs, right? There will be like a huge queue waiting in an office somewhere where there's a guy saying like 3 essay writings for IITs. Because like that is what they will need to even write something like that. They don't have the life experience to like synthesize their own information and then like write their own essay thinking about their own intentions. Because these kids,
True.
most of them are going into it because they're being forced by their parents to go into it. So these are throughout their life, they're like sitting there doing things that are asked by somebody else, and that's what they get good at the end. That they're good at like being an employee where they have a supervising officer telling them what to do, and then they do it. They do a good job of doing that, making pleasing the masters or something. So that is the detriment of having this kind of a system that is fully objective. We need to have this thing as well. But yeah, I think KD, Matt, you wanted to say something. Somebody was trying to
Yeah,
speak. Who was that?
yeah. So, just to clarify, of course, I do believe in meritocracy. I'm not against competition, but I believe in a competition where people strive to be the best person of themselves, not a kind of competition where anti-suicide fans are being installed in quotas with alarm systems. Secondly, I guess the IITs already have an IQ bar to qualify to these institutions and whatsoever. So I think in the institutions, at least you have a basic idea. Whatever students are coming, they are of a middle to high IQ level. So why not focus on the EQ? Why not focus on their personality development? Why not focus on other aspects that they might not have got an opportunity due to this competitiveness to develop? Now, Harsha rightly
Yeah,
pointed out that why is a great question. That why do you want to join IITs? And I guess that will also help us in developing centers of IITs. Like let's say we have 10 IITs, so some IITs could excel in let's say research purposes. Some could be more into the packages things. Some could be something else, whatever they like. So the students, based on whatever they want to do, they could even find an even purified version of the peers who are also kind of motivated for the same goals as the others are.
Right. Yeah, I think this was like one of the best discussions we've had so far, to be honest. Like there's been a lot of interesting points made, and I think there's been a lot of representation as well from various sides of this thing as well. I really appreciated Venkat coming in and sharing a different perspective. I mean, I disagree with it, but it's good that he was able to like bring in that perspective as well. So thanks a lot everyone for joining, and yeah, see you next week.
Yeah, so it is a
Yeah,
good
good
topic actually.
opportunity.
I didn't think that I would actually be putting in so many
Yeah.
points for. Yeah.
No, I saw your comment about like the topic lacks an edge or something. I was like, what is this guy talking about? Because like this
No, I
is
mean
like
the topic comes after our last week's topic, right? That was like death penalty and all. I mean, compared to that, this like it's like a dwarf, right?
no,
That's what I was
this
thinking.
no, this is like a huge topic, and there is like a huge consequences to the decisions that are being made in this segment. Because like if you work on the topmost institution of in a country, right, you're going to inspire the rest of the people. So if IITs are actually really good, right, it's gonna inspire a huge revolution of like innovation in this country, and that is what I'm advocating for. I'm not like trying to put down IITs where they are. I think that there is so much more room for development, that this overhyped nature of this IIT, right? It's actually bringing like making IITs lazy. They're not in the pressure to innovate or do something different. And I want people to know that IITs are overhyped so that they will be motivated to do the right thing. They could be doing so much more. They're not doing even like 2% of what they should be doing. So that was the motivation for the topic actually. But yeah,
Yeah, I guess everyone wanted more from IIT. Do
absolutely.
more.
No, I think eventually, right? I don't think IIT is going to do what is required. I think they're going to be outcompeted and then like made obsolete by other players who are willing to put in the money and time and effort to build a world-class institution in this country. It's going to attract the
Yeah.
best minds, and IIT's legacy is going to be dethroned. Our kids are not going to like want to go into IIT. That'll be like for like nerdy like losers. It'll be for like if you really want to be the cool kid, you would want to go to a place where that has the resources to make your work stay worthwhile, and also has a more sensible approach to innovation and what it's doing, what the relevance of being there in the current world context, because the current world context and what IITs are giving you are completely mismatched in my estimation, please. But yeah, this was a great talk, guys. Thank you so much for all for joining.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you everyone. Bye bye.